The Brigmores were an ancient family, bankrupted a generation ago. Since then, the manor has housed 2 street gangs, a smuggling ring, innumerable rats, and the Brigmore witches. I'd always left them alone, but now a painter named Delilah had taken up witchcraft and formed a coven. She was trying something. A ritual. But what kind? The outsider knows. I cannot abide a mystery.
Alright, here we are. The last mission in the entire game.
I scouted, sir. They've locked the front, and I've seen evidence of snares. Also, maybe it's nothing, but I spotted several statues of the woman Delilah. I don't know what it means, but I thought it was worth mentioning.
It means trouble. Anything else?
They're getting in and out of the house somehow, but I haven't spotted it. Sorry, sir. Best I can do.
Good enough. I'll take it from here.
This one is fairly straightforward, though unfortunately I'm going to have to use Blink twice, since the only ways into the manor are out here in the front. The only ways to gain access to those ways are out on the backyard, and the only routes to or from the backyard require Blink. Other than that, I'm just going to have to bait a couple of witches with some noise, but that has been an almost universal requirement in these DLC missions, so nothing out of the ordinary. I'm a big fan of the atmosphere in this mission, particularly inside, but the outside and the approach works really well for me. Unfortunately, that witch is moving to a location where we'll have to wait for her to move before we can proceed. If we were to move right now, the river crust spitting at us would make noise and she would be alerted. Sometimes she goes to chill somewhere else and you can just move on immediately, but we're gonna have to wait for her to get far enough away. This is not a difficult spot, it's just very annoying. It's a long way to just stealth a very you can see why it's annoying, I don't need to explain it. And here's the first blink we need to use. And some more river crust avoidance. Jumping is good because it makes it miss severely very often. So one of the ways to gain access to the manor is to repair a lever which will let us open a grave in the graveyard at front. They removed the lever to make entry harder. And we've just retrieved it. The other way, of course, is through the front door. We would have to retrieve a key from, I believe, one of 2 places out here on the backyard.
What in the void do you want that for? When's the last time we had proper tea?
It still put the taste on my tongue. Wouldn't mind a bit more. And we'll find some. Maybe on some passing boat. Maybe there'll be a trader wagon coming through.
Not with the plague on the city. Everyone knows the dead don't buy tea. Or anything else.
Still, if I get that copper pot, I'll be halfway there.
You're moon mad, sister. Ever optimistic.
Then we'll just have to take another route back to the front. We could use the one we used previously, but I'd rather avoid the river crust. There's our first proper look at a gravehound. They're basically similar to the Overseer's wolfhounds, but they're dead and can't be destroyed entirely without destroying the skull. Killing them will just despawn them into barely a skull, which you need to then destroy.
Dowd. I grow sick of this assassin. The other sisters speak of him with a tiny shudder of awe in their voices, like stupid schoolgirls.
Don't worry, love. The hounds will warn us, or the statues. And then we'll descend on him like a murder of crows, and we'll pick his bones clean.
According to some dialogue we're going to miss inside, this mission takes place after Lady Boyle's party, but before the Lord Regent is destroyed. The Regent is still in power, but has lost the support of the army due to the loss of the financing. Fucked up that jump a bit, but luckily the witch down here is far enough away we didn't need to make a perfect jump there. This pot is surprisingly good cover. And there's the entrance to the crypt. Inside those walls, we're just going to have to avoid these gravehounds to get there. Killing them does not count as a kill in the stats, just like killing wolfhounds doesn't. However, we're going to avoid doing that regardless. If they're not active, they just chill as skulls on the ground. Getting too close will spawn them. You can pick up the skulls and throw them to destroy them, or fire an arrow at them, or use pull and hit them in the air with your sword. They're not too tough to deal with when you know how. And there's the lever, which is now fixed, and the way in. A cool Delilah statue. Possibly a reference to the Weeping Angels from Doctor Who. That statue will do a remarkable impression of them if you pick up the bone charm. So now we're in. First order of business, get up to Delilah's studio to figure out what the hell is going on. And go from there. The place is pretty fucked up and very barren. Not many people around here. This jump is super awkward. And this is the studio. Very, very trapped.
Coughlin.
Not very proficiently. Okay, so Delilah is in the void.
So Delilah wants
where
to
she has
become-
gone through
become Empress.
one of her paintings in the gallery. We're gonna follow her there, taking the lantern with us so we can illuminate the canvas and use it to follow her. It's always intensely annoying to get stuck during a slide like that. Anyway, the canvas presents a problem. There are two witches next to it, having a conversation, after which they will start patrolling the room. The patrol pattern does not leave an opening to illuminate the canvas and step through. The illumination takes quite a long while.
Someone who's not supposed to be here.
It's also impossible to bait them away from the canvas for a long enough time to do the illumination. I was
Will we leave this place soon?
basically
Stay for another season?
resigned
Yes,
to
my dear.
having to knock out one of them or to do an interesting save load glitch to get rid of her before I was watching a friend of mine play this mission yesterday and realized that the witches do move before they start the conversation. The conversation switch trigger is just there in the doorway, so we can throw the whale oil canister to make them move,
Be thorough.
preferably behind the canvas,
Look underneath everything.
so this is not ideal. But once they are
Be
done
thorough.
searching,
We
they will
must
just
make sure.
stay there.
Where are you? Nothing.
Sometimes they can do trigger their conversation wherever they end up at. I feel it is if they are close enough to each other, but I'm not sure. Anyway, I feel they're far enough away, and luckily they start their conversation, which means they are now looking at each other and not here. Having them move behind the canvas would have been ideal, but hey, this works.
You have many talents, Dowd, and they've served you. Delilah's talents are quite different. She creates images, but she does more. She captures spirit. She insinuates her will into her subject, whatever it is. We're witnessing her masterpiece, and perhaps yours as well. I gave you Delilah's name, and you followed it to this moment. You see now what hangs in the balance. Emily's life, Delilah's ambition, an empire in the act of crumbling. In your long life, I've rarely seen you act with such consummate grace. I give my marks sparingly, and I don't play favorites, but I will watch this with unusual attention.
So why is Delilah going to
Time to see
possess
what you've
Emily
really got,
instead of
Delilah.
the Lord Regent? The same conversation that places the mission on the timeline explains that apparently she can see at least partly into the future through the void and predicts Emily's giving back her throne and the Lord Regent's
Delilah's work.
destruction.
She's been busy.
I call out to you from the
The non-lethal solution to this
I
is
call you with ochre from Morley.
extremely close to the ending of Thief the Dark Project. You have a magical adversary, though Delilah is not an actual god like the Trickster is,
Same loom that spun the fabric of
and you fuck up their ritual
I made my brushes from
in order to turn it against them.
Scalp. Emily,
I know I keep mentioning
you
all these
cannot
parallels
ignore
and references to
my
Thief here.
power is too
It's just,
deep. My reach too
I'm very
long.
glad that there's
Narcissist.
a worthy spiritual sequel to the franchise, finally.
Brush touches paint. Brush touches canvas. Brush touches void. And now I see you, Emily Caldwin. I breathe your breath. I can feel what you do. The bright mornings in the pub. I feel the cold night air of the ruin where you sleep. And the stink of the river. Image strikes the eye touches the mind. Mind touches the void. I feel your love for Corvo Atana and your lost mother. For your caretaker, Callista. I feel your fear in the night. Your hunger to learn. To become someone important. My hunger too. My fear. You are becoming mine. We are nearly finished. Close your eyes, Emily. Sleep forever. Feel the void open beneath you. Make room for me. Give in to me, Emily. Give in to me now. Paint flows. Blood flows. Life goes. Out with the old, in with the new. You've lived in these bones long enough. Sweet young girl. It.
My, that was a pretty long ritual.
I am. What's happening? This is all wrong. What am I becoming? Outsider's blood. Is this some trick? No!
Bye, Delilah. That was surprisingly easy. And that's the game. And the DLC.
No one will ever know exactly what it took to save Emily Caldwin from a living death as Delilah's puppet. No one except the outsider, who watches everything and thinks his own dark thoughts and speaks to few in any generation. I've learned that our choices always matter. To someone. Somewhere. And sooner or later, in ways we can't always fathom, the consequences come back to us. I came from Serkonos to Dunwall as a boy. Made my living as a killer. One of the few who've heard the outsider's voice. I murdered an empress, but saved her daughter, who will one day rule the Empire. Those were my choices. I'm ready for what comes.
I'm really glad I got convinced to play the DLC as well, despite having to compromise on the challenge in several places.
When I killed your empress and took her daughter, something broke inside me. Now I want nothing but to leave this city and fade from the memory of those who reside here. I've had enough killing. So my life is in your hands. Make your choice.
You make an eloquent plea for a man with innocent blood on his hands. It's a shame Corvo doesn't know the real story, isn't it? How in these last days you passed through Coldridge Prison like a shadow, dared the tangles of Dunwall's underworld, and walked out unscathed, outwitted one of the greatest witches in a generation, all with consummate care and skill. How you saved Emily Caldwin, daughter of the Empress, first of her name, and no one will ever know. But how does it end for Dowd, the hired killer, the murderer, the savior of the Empire? It's up to Corvo now.
All in all, the DLC has been much more enjoyable than the main game. It has been quite a bit more challenging and therefore much more fun to figure out.